The church doors stood wide open. Sunlight poured through the stained glass windows, painting the white floor with colors that should have felt warm. Instead, every step toward the altar felt heavier than the last. I smiled anyway. Today was supposed to be the day everything finally made sense. After 4 years together, after every late-night promise, every sacrifice, every plan scribbled on a coffee shop napkins, Olivia and I were finally getting married. At least, that was what I believed. Noah walked beside me, straightening my tie before giving my shoulder a firm squeeze. "You look nervous." I'd be worried if I wasn't. A small laugh escaped him. 5 more minutes, and you'll be somebody's husband." 5 minutes. That sounded easy. I reached into my pocket one last time and touched the wedding ring. Cold. Perfect. Waiting. Just like me. The guests slowly filled the pews. Friends waved. Family smiled. The music team quietly prepared near the front. Everything looked exactly the way Olivia had dreamed. White roses. Soft candles. A long ivory aisle. She had spent months choosing every detail. That thought made me pull out my phone. One unread message. Not from Olivia. Just another reminder from the travel company confirming our honeymoon flight. I opened our chat instead. "Good morning. Beautiful. Can't wait to see you." Delivered. Not read. My smile faded a little. Maybe she was getting ready. Brides were always busy on wedding mornings. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. The wedding planner hurried toward me. "Just a small delay." "Everything okay?" She forced a smile. "The bride's room is still getting organized." It sounded strange. "Still," I nodded. "Take your time." Guests kept talking. Someone laughed. Children chased each other between the benches. Everything felt normal. Until another 10 minutes disappeared. Then another. My phone stayed silent. I sent another message. "Everyone's here. Are you okay?" Delivered. Unread. No one noticed me checking the screen again. No answer. I shook my head. Maybe her phone died. Maybe. Neither of us believed it. The music stopped. Conversations grew quieter. People started checking their watches. The wedding planner disappeared behind another hallway. This time she didn't come back quickly. Whispers floated across the room. "What's happening? Is something wrong? Has anyone seen Olivia?" I stood near the altar, pretending not to hear them. My fingers kept turning the wedding ring inside my pocket. Round and smooth. A promise that suddenly felt fragile. 20 more minutes passed. Margaret Bennett walked through the side entrance. Olivia's mother always looked composed. Today her makeup couldn't hide the panic underneath. She avoided my eyes. That scared me more than anything else. I stepped toward her. "Where's Olivia?" Her lips parted. Nothing came out. Did something happen? She looked over my shoulder instead. "I don't know." Those 3 words echoed louder than church bells. Noah stepped closer. "What do you mean you don't know?" Margaret pressed trembling fingers against her forehead. "She left the house early." Left. She wasn't in her room when everyone woke up. Cold rushed through my body. Why didn't anyone tell me? "We thought she'd come here." I called again. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. Nothing. The church no longer felt beautiful. It felt enormous. Every whisper seemed to bounce off the walls. Every pair of eyes slowly turned toward me. I could almost hear people putting the story together. The groom was here. The bride wasn't. Someone had been left behind. The wedding planner finally returned. She held a folded piece of paper. She wasn't looking at me. "I found this." My heartbeat stumbled. "For me." She nodded. The envelope had my name written across the front in Olivia's handwriting. My hands shook before I even opened it. 1 page. Only 2 sentences. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I can't marry you. Please don't look for me." That was it. No explanation. No goodbye worth remembering. No reason. Just an ending. The paper slipped through my fingers. Noah caught it before it touched the floor. His face hardened as he read it. He couldn't finish. Neither could I. Around us, whispers became louder. "Oh my God." She left him. On the wedding day. Every word landed like another stone. An older couple quietly stood and walked toward the exit. Others followed. Not because the ceremony had ended. Because there was never going to be one. My father approached slowly. He rested one hand on my shoulder. "We can leave." I couldn't move. Everything around me blurred. The flowers, the candles, the empty place where Olivia should have been. I kept expecting someone to run through the doors, to tell me this was some terrible mistake, to tell me she had been in an accident. Anything, anything except this. Nothing happened. Only more silence. Noah bent down and picked up my ring box. "You don't have to stay here." My fingers closed around it. The lid stayed shut. The ring inside had never touched her hand. It never would. Outside the church, photographers quietly packed their cameras. The decorated wedding car waited by the curb with ribbons still tied across the hood. A driver stood beside the trunk. "Our luggage." He stopped after recognizing my face. "I'm sorry." The honeymoon suitcase already rested inside the trunk. Packed 2 nights ago, Olivia had folded our clothes herself. She had smiled while arguing over which shoes took up too much space. Now the suitcase felt like it belonged to strangers. I lifted it myself. The driver didn't argue. Nobody tried to stop me. Guests looked away as I walked past them. Some offered quiet sympathy. Others simply watched. Their pity hurt almost as much as Olivia's note. I placed the suitcase in my own car. The ring box rested on top of it. Neither had fulfilled the purpose they were made for. My phone buzzed. Hope rushed through me so fast it almost hurt. Unknown number. I answered immediately. "Olivia." Only breathing. Then the line disconnected. I stared at the screen until it went dark. Hours later, I sat alone in my apartment. The wedding suit was still on. The tie hung loose around my neck. The church flowers had been replaced by empty walls. The suitcase waited beside the couch. The ring remained inside its velvet box. My phone still showed every unread message I had sent that morning. Each one felt heavier than the last. "Good morning, beautiful. Everyone's here. Are you okay? Please answer me." A soft sound interrupted my thoughts. Something slid across the floor near the front door. I stood slowly. There was nobody outside when I opened it. Only a sealed envelope waiting on the welcome mat. No return address. No name. Across the front, written in careful black ink, were 6 words. "You never learned why she disappeared." The envelope stayed on my kitchen table all night. I walked past it more times than I could count. Every time I reached for it, my hand stopped halfway. The words on the front refused to leave my mind. "You never learned why she disappeared." Morning came without sleep. Coffee turned cold beside me while the unopened envelope waited. Finally, I broke the seal. Inside was a single note. "Meet me at Riverside Cafe. 10 o'clock. Come alone. Claire." Olivia's sister. The last person I expected to hear from. The last person I wanted answers from. Still, I went. The cafe overlooked the river where Olivia and I had spent countless weekends dreaming about the future. Those memories made every step feel heavier. Claire was already there. She sat near the window, turning an untouched cup of tea between her hands. Dark circles rested beneath her eyes. She looked as though she hadn't slept either. "You came." "I almost didn't." She nodded slowly. "I wouldn't have blamed you." I remained standing. "If this is about defending Olivia, don't waste your time." A painful smile crossed her face. "I'm not here to defend her." "Then why am I here?" Her fingers tightened around the cup. "Because you deserve the truth." The words hung between us. "You had 4 days to tell me." "I know." "You watched me stand alone at that altar." "I know." "And you stayed quiet." Her eyes closed for a brief moment. "I promised her." Anger rushed through me. A promise mattered more than what happened to me? No. She looked up. "Breaking that promise has cost me my sister." I pulled out the chair across from her. "Then start talking." Claire took a long breath before speaking again. "Olivia didn't wake up one morning and decide she stopped loving you." I folded my arms. "She left me anyway." "Yes." "So what difference does the reason make?" "It changes everything." I wasn't convinced. She reached into her bag and placed several printed screenshots on the table. They're from Olivia's phone. I picked up the first page. Most of the messages looked familiar. Then something strange caught my attention. There were huge gaps. Entire conversations had disappeared. "These aren't complete." They weren't when I found them either. I frowned. "What do you mean?" Claire slid another page toward me. Daniel had access to her work phone. My jaw tightened. Her mentor? He convinced her to let him manage parts of her schedule. Why would he touch our messages? Because he wanted her focused on work. The words sounded impossible. Claire leaned forward. He kept telling her that marriage would slow her down. I stared at the papers. He actually believed deleting messages would help. He believed separating you would make her easier to control. I laughed once, not because anything was funny, because the truth sounded unbelievable. So all those nights she ignored me. Sometimes she never received your messages. And mine. Claire swallowed. He deleted some of hers too. The air suddenly felt thinner. I remembered evenings when my phone stayed silent. I remembered asking Olivia why she had become distant. She always blamed stress, work, deadlines, meetings. Now another possibility stood in front of me. Someone had quietly pushed us apart. You expect me to believe this? I expected that question. Claire reached into her bag again. This time she placed Daniel's old tablet on the table. I found everything after the wedding. The screen lit up. Hidden message backups, deleted conversations, email drafts, even reminders marked with my name. One note froze me. Keep Ethan distracted until conference ends. Another. Don't let wedding interfere with promotion. I slowly leaned back. It's real. Olivia knew? Not at first. When did she find out? 2 days before the wedding. Everything inside me stopped. She knew. Claire nodded. She confronted Daniel. And he admitted enough to make her question everything. My hands curled into fists. Then why didn't she come to me? Because another person was whispering in her ear. I already knew the answer. Her mother. Claire gave a tired nod. Mom spent months telling Olivia she'd end up trapped. Like her own marriage. Exactly. The pieces slowly connected. Pressure from work. Pressure from home. Fear growing louder than love. None of it erased what happened, but it explained how everything broke apart. I still don't understand. Claire lowered her voice. Olivia packed her wedding dress that morning. I blinked. What? She planned to marry you. But she didn't. She drove away before sunrise. My heartbeat quickened. Where? I don't know. You expect me to believe that too? I followed her. That surprised me. I lost her car outside the city. You never found her? Claire shook her head. The only thing I found was this. She pulled out a small notebook wrapped in brown paper. My breath caught. The cover was worn. I recognized it immediately. Olivia carried that journal everywhere. She wrote in it after difficult days. She never let anyone read it. Claire placed it in front of me. She left it at my apartment the night before the wedding. My fingers rested on the cover. It felt heavier than it should. Why didn't you give this to me sooner? Because she begged me not to. And now, her voice nearly disappeared. Now I think keeping her secret has only created more pain. I reached for the journal. Claire gently stopped my hand. Not yet. Confusion crossed my face. What? Don't open it today. Why? Because you're still bleeding. I deserve answers. You do. She slowly released the journal. But those pages won't heal you if you're reading them only to punish yourself. I wanted to argue. Instead, I quietly slipped the notebook into my bag. Claire stood. So what happens now? I stared through the cafe window. The river kept moving. It didn't care who stayed behind. I'm not chasing Olivia. Claire remained still. I spent 4 years building a future with someone who walked away. A long breath escaped me. If she wants to explain, she knows where I live. And if she never comes back, I thought about the church, the empty altar, the unopened honeymoon suitcase, the ring still locked inside its velvet box. Then I rebuild. Claire's eyes filled with quiet relief. I'm glad to hear that. Before leaving, she paused beside the table. One more thing. I looked up. Delete her number. The suggestion surprised me. If she returns, it shouldn't be because you're still waiting. Hours later, I stood inside my apartment. My thumb hovered over Olivia's contact. Photos, messages, call history, everything from 4 years together. One tap. Delete contact? The screen waited. So this is really happening? I closed my eyes, then pressed delete. Her name disappeared. The empty space on the screen hurt more than I expected. I walked into the living room. Our framed engagement photo still rested on the bookshelf. We looked happy, untouched by doubt, untouched by lies. I lifted the frame, carefully removed the photograph, folded it once, placed it inside a drawer. The empty frame remained on the shelf, a quiet reminder that appearances could survive long after love had fallen apart. Night settled over the apartment. The journal waited beside me. Claire's warning echoed in my head. Not yet. I couldn't wait any longer. My fingers untied the brown paper. The lock clicked open. I turned to the first page. The opening sentence stole the air from my lungs. If you're reading this, I was already too late. The words on the first page refused to let me breathe. If you're reading this, I was already too late. I sat on my couch until sunrise with Olivia's journal resting in my lap. The next page carried another confession. You spent years trying to make me happy. I kept believing one more promotion, one more success, one more achievement would finally make me deserve you. Instead, I kept pushing you further away. I closed the journal, not because I had finished reading, because I wasn't ready to face the rest. The apartment felt different that morning, not lighter, just honest. For weeks, I had blamed myself for losing the woman I loved. Now another question refused to leave my mind. When had I lost myself? My phone buzzed. Noah, you've been hiding long enough. I'm not hiding. A short laugh came through the speaker. You haven't answered anyone in 2 weeks. I wasn't in the mood. Good. His answer caught me off guard. Because today you're coming outside whether you're in the mood or not. I don't think. No excuses. The line ended. An hour later he knocked on my door, carrying 2 gym bags. One landed at my feet. You're serious. I've never been more serious. I'm exhausted. You've been sitting in this apartment talking to ghosts. He crossed his arms. Come back to real life. The drive to the gym felt awkward. Neither of us rushed to fill the silence. Finally Noah spoke. You still wearing the ring? I reached into my pocket. The velvet box was there. Always there. I carry it. Why? I stared through the windshield. I don't know. You do. His voice stayed calm. You think if you let go of that ring, you'll let go of her. I had no answer. Inside the gym, every movement hurt. My muscles complained. My lungs burned. Sweat replaced weeks of numbness. By the time we finished, my shirt clung to my back. Noah handed me a bottle of water. There. What? You finally look alive. The next morning I returned alone. Then again. And again. The pain in my muscles slowly replaced the pain that had lived inside my chest. Healing wasn't dramatic. It was repetitive. One workout. One healthy meal. One full night of sleep. Then another. Weeks passed. I opened Olivia's journal only one chapter at a time. Each page revealed another piece of the woman I thought I knew. She wrote about pressure, fear, her mother's endless warnings, Daniel's promises. Then she wrote something that hurt more than anything else. You kept asking me if I was okay. I kept smiling because I thought protecting you meant carrying everything alone. I closed the book again. Love hadn't disappeared. Trust had. That was a different kind of wound. One afternoon, my manager called me into his office. I've been waiting. For what? For you to stop surviving and start working again. He pushed a folder across the desk. A new project. I opened it. A luxury housing development. The biggest contract our company had ever received. I thought Daniel's firm was getting this. They were. He smiled. Not anymore. I looked up. What changed? Someone started asking difficult questions. The newspapers answered that question 2 days later. Investigation opens into Pierce Development Group. Another headline appeared the following week. Financial records under review. Then another. Senior executive resigns during ethics probe. Daniel's face filled every business website. Gone was the confident smile. He looked tired, cornered. Noah walked into my office holding his phone. Looks like karma finally learned his address. I stared at the article. I don't feel happy. You don't? No. What do you feel? I thought about it. Relieved. Daniel had stolen enough peace already. Watching him fall didn't repair my past. It simply stopped him from hurting more people. A few days later, Claire invited me to lunch. She arrived wearing simple clothes instead of the polished business style I remembered. You look different. So do you. She smiled. In a good way. I think we're both sleeping again. She laughed softly. That's progress. Lunch wasn't awkward anymore. We talked about work, books, travel, everything except the wedding, until she quietly placed something on the table. A gold business award. Daniel's name was engraved across the front. I found this outside Olivia's apartment. What happened? He threw it away. I frowned. That doesn't sound like him. He blamed everyone except himself. Claire slowly turned the award over. It cracked when it hit the trash bin. I stared at the broken trophy. Months earlier, Daniel had treated awards like proof he could never lose. Now one lay abandoned between us. I almost picked it up. Claire gently pushed it away. Then I realized it belonged exactly where he left it. Neither of us touched it again. When lunch ended, she stopped beside my car. I want to thank you. For what? You never tried to make me choose between my sister and the truth. I smiled faintly. I've already seen what choosing sides can destroy. She nodded. Take care of yourself. You too. She walked away without looking back. There was comfort in that. No pressure. No expectations. Just two people trying to move forward. Another month passed. I packed the last box inside my apartment. Every room echoed now. The place had held too many memories. The landlord waited near the front entrance. You sure about leaving? Yeah. You've been here a long time. I know. I locked the apartment one final time. The old key rested in my palm. It had opened the door to every happy memory I once believed would last forever. I walked to the kitchen drawer in my new condo, dropped the key inside, closed it. Some doors deserve to stay shut. That evening I cooked dinner. Nothing fancy. Grilled chicken, rice, vegetables, a simple meal. I carried the plate onto my balcony. The city lights stretched across the horizon. Halfway through dinner, something unexpected happened. I realized I wasn't forcing myself to eat. I wasn't staring at the empty chair across from me. I wasn't wondering whether Olivia would call. I simply enjoyed the meal. It wasn't happiness. Not completely. But it wasn't loneliness either. My phone buzzed. Claire had sent a short message. The investigation against Daniel is getting bigger. Olivia came back today. I read the words twice, then locked my phone. Whatever happened next belonged to her, not me. Weeks turned into months. My new project became the busiest season of my career. The team trusted my decisions. Clients respected my work. The man who once planned his entire future around another person slowly remembered his own dreams. One rainy afternoon, I stepped out of a meeting carrying blueprints under one arm. The receptionist stood as soon as she saw me. Someone's waiting outside. I don't have another appointment. I know. Her expression changed. I think you should see for yourself. Rain tapped against the glass doors. A familiar figure stood beneath the building's awning. Olivia. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not because she had changed physically, because the confidence she once carried had disappeared. Her expensive coat was soaked from the rain. Dark circles rested beneath tired eyes. She noticed me. Neither of us moved. Several seconds passed before she slowly walked closer. There were no dramatic tears, no desperate rush, only quiet exhaustion. She stopped a few feet away. Her fingers trembled around the strap of her bag. I finally know what I destroyed. I finally know what I destroyed. Rain rolled off Olivia's coat and gathered at her feet. The words reached me, but they didn't knock the air out of my lungs the way they would have months ago. I folded the blueprints under my arm. What do you want? 10 minutes. Her voice was barely louder than the rain. If you still hate me after that, I'll leave. I studied her face. She looked tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. Not broken, not helpless, simply carrying the weight of choices that refused to disappear. There's a coffee shop across the street. She nodded once. I'll meet you there. We sat by the window without touching the menus. The silence wasn't awkward. It felt honest. The waitress placed 2 cups on the table. Neither of us reached for them. Olivia wrapped both hands around the warm mug. I've imagined this conversation 100 times. I stopped imagining it. A faint smile appeared, then disappeared just as quickly. I figured you would. She took a slow breath. The morning of our wedding, I drove away before sunrise. I know that much. I kept telling myself I was buying time. Her eyes settled on the rain outside. I thought if I could fix everything before the ceremony, I could still come back. What needed fixing? My life. The answer sounded painfully simple. Daniel convinced me I had one chance to become successful. She rubbed her thumb along the edge of the cup. He kept saying marriage would make people see me as distracted. I stayed quiet. He told me investors trusted people who put work first. A bitter laugh escaped her. I believed him. And your mother? Olivia lowered her head. She never stopped reminding me how unhappy my parents were. Another pause. She used to tell me love fades, but success stays. And you believe that too. I wanted to prove she was wrong. She looked up. Instead, I became exactly what she feared. I remembered the journal. Every page had carried the same pattern. Fear dressed as ambition. Pride pretending to be strength. You could have talked to me. I know. You could have shown me the messages. I know. You could have trusted me. Those words landed harder than anything else. She closed her eyes. I was ashamed. The rain outside grew heavier. I found out Daniel had been deleting our messages 2 days before the wedding. Her fingers trembled. I confronted him, and he admitted enough to make me realize I had pushed you away for months. I waited. I wanted to come to you that night. What stopped you? My pride. The answer came without hesitation. I thought if I admitted everything, you'd see how weak I'd been. A quiet breath escaped me. So instead you disappeared. I convinced myself I could fix it alone. She laughed softly, but there was no happiness in it. I've become very good at making terrible decisions. Neither of us smiled. She finally reached into her bag. Several folded newspaper articles slid onto the table. Every headline carried Daniel's name. Fraud investigation expands. Major clients withdraw contracts. Civil lawsuits filed. I testified. I looked at her. You helped the investigation? I gave them every email I had. Why? Because staying quiet already destroyed enough lives. She wasn't asking for credit. She was simply telling me what happened. What about your job? I don't have one. The words came calmly. Daniel blamed everything on me first. And your company believed him? They did. Another bitter smile crossed her face. Until the evidence proved otherwise. I leaned back in my chair. So he used you? Yes. And when things fell apart, he disappeared. The confident businessman who once controlled every room had run away from the damage he created. Somehow that no longer surprised me. Olivia slowly opened another folder. Inside were legal documents. My attorney helped me file statements against him. The pages carried signatures and official stamps. Months ago, I would have celebrated. Now they simply felt like consequences arriving late. What about your mother? A shadow crossed her face. We barely speak. What happened? Claire finally stopped protecting her. That answer caught my attention. Olivia looked toward the window again. My sister told the entire family everything. The pressure. The lies. The manipulation. She nodded. Every secret. I pictured Claire carrying those burdens for years. She had protected everyone except herself. My mother kept insisting none of this would have happened if I had been stronger. Olivia slowly shook her head. Claire stood up from the dinner table. Her voice grew quieter. She told Mom that strength wasn't forcing people to obey. Another pause. It was telling the truth. The image settled into my mind. An empty dining room. A family finally hearing what should have been spoken years earlier. What happened after that? My father walked out. And your mother? She stayed alone. No anger filled Olivia's voice. Only sadness. The house has never felt so empty. She reached into her purse again. A small velvet box appeared between us. The same color as mine. My heartbeat slowed. She gently pushed it across the table. I kept this. I already knew what was inside. The engagement ring. I should have returned it months ago. My fingers rested on the box without opening it. I wasn't sure you'd accept it. It's not mine anymore. I know. She looked at the box for several seconds. I just couldn't keep pretending it belonged to a future that no longer exists. I picked it up. The weight surprised me, not because of the gold, because of the memories trapped inside it. I don't hate you. She blinked. I don't know. The answer felt peaceful. I spent months thinking hatred would make healing easier. And it only kept you in my life. A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I've been hoping for another chance. I know. I don't deserve one. No. She nodded slowly. I needed to hear you say it. The words hurt. Not because they were cruel. Because they were true. She stood before I could. I won't ask again. I watched her gather her bag. The man standing in front of me isn't the same one I left. No. A faint smile reached my face. He finally remembered himself. She lowered her eyes. I wish I had met this version before I ruined everything. You did. Confusion crossed her face. You just couldn't see him. She closed her eyes for a moment. When they opened again, there was acceptance instead of hope. I'm glad you survived me. She turned toward the exit. Halfway to the door, she stopped. I almost forgot. She reached in her bag one final time. A sealed envelope appeared in her hand. I wanted you to have this. What is it? You'll understand after you open it. She placed it gently in my hands. Our fingers barely touched. There was no attempt to hold on. No desperate goodbye. Only quiet distance. Then she walked into the rain. I remained by the window until she disappeared beyond the traffic. The envelope felt heavier than the ring box. My name was written across the front in familiar handwriting. I opened it slowly. Inside was a legal document. The title alone made my heart stop. Transfer of property ownership. The document shook in my hands. I read the first page once. Then again. Every line carried Olivia's signature. Months before our wedding, she had transferred the ownership of the land we bought together entirely into my name. The property was mine. No conditions. No hidden agreement. No request for anything in return. Another folded page rested behind the legal papers. I recognized her handwriting before I unfolded it. Ethan, if everything falls apart, I don't want my mistakes to destroy your future. That land was always meant to become your dream home. Even if I lose you, I refuse to take that dream away. The words blurred for a moment, not because they erased the pain, because they reminded me that people could love someone deeply and still destroy everything through fear. I carefully folded the letter. Some truths arrived too late to change the ending. A week later, I met my attorney. He adjusted his glasses while reading the documents. Everything is legal. I thought there might be a mistake. There isn't. He pushed the papers back toward me. The property belongs to you. I nodded slowly. I'll keep it. Do you plan to sell it? My thoughts drifted to the sketches Olivia and I had made years ago. A small house, large windows, a front porch where we imagined growing old together. No. A quiet smile found its way onto my face. I'm finally going to build it. The attorney looked surprised. Alone. Not alone. I gathered the papers, just without waiting for someone else to give my life permission. Construction began that spring. Every weekend, I drove to the property before sunrise. The empty land slowly transformed. Concrete became walls. Walls became rooms. The roof finally covered everything we had once imagined. Some memories still appeared while I walked through the unfinished house. Instead of running from them, I let them pass. The past no longer controlled every step. It simply reminded me how far I had traveled. One afternoon, Noah arrived carrying 2 coffees. He stood in the middle of the living room, looking around. You actually did it? It's getting there. He laughed. I remember when you drew this on a napkin. So do I. He handed me a cup. Proud of yourself? I looked around the house. I think I'm learning how. He raised his coffee. Took you long enough. We clinked our cups together. The moment needed nothing more. Several months later, the news finally reached its conclusion. Daniel accepted responsibility for financial misconduct and fraud after overwhelming evidence surfaced. His company collapsed. The awards he once treasured disappeared from every office wall. The headlines moved on to other stories. So did I. Not every victory required me to celebrate someone else's downfall. Claire called one evening. Do you have time for dinner? I do. She chose a quiet restaurant overlooking the river. The same river where my life had once fallen apart. This time the view felt peaceful. She smiled as I sat down. The house is finished. It is. You sound happy. I sound calm. She nodded. I think that's even better. Dinner passed easily. We laughed about small things. Work. Books. Noah's terrible cooking. There was no pressure hiding beneath the conversation. No awkward expectations. Only honesty. As we walked outside, Claire slipped her hands into her coat pockets. Olivia left yesterday. I stopped. Where did she go? Another state. For work. To start over. I remained quiet. She sold almost everything she owned. Claire looked toward the river. She told me she couldn't heal while living beside the life she walked away from. Is she okay? Some days. A gentle breeze moved across the water. She asked me not to tell you where she went. I nodded. That's probably best. Claire watched me for a moment. You don't want to know? No. The answer surprised even me. If our paths cross again someday, that's life. And if they don't, I'll still be okay. She smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. A month later, I received one final notification on my phone. An unread message. The date caught my attention. It had been sent the morning after our wedding. Somehow it had remained hidden during the phone recovery after Daniel's deleted messages were restored. My thumb hovered over it. Part of me wondered if opening it would change anything. Another part already knew the answer. I tapped the message. I'm sorry. Only 2 words. No excuses. No promises. No requests. Just 2 words written by someone who had already realized she was losing everything. I read them once, then closed the conversation. The message remained unread in every way that mattered. I opened the settings. Delete conversation? My finger rested on the screen, then pressed yes. The chat disappeared forever. It felt less like losing something and more like setting down a weight I had carried long enough. The completed house welcomed me home that evening. Fresh paint still carried a faint scent through the rooms. Sunlight poured through the large windows exactly the way I had imagined years before. I walked from room to room without rushing. Every wall held possibility instead of regret. The spare bedroom became a library. The office overlooked the backyard. The front porch held 2 empty chairs. Not because I was waiting for someone, because I liked the view. One final box remained unopened. The label simply read, Memories. I carried it into my office. Inside rested old photographs, travel tickets, birthday cards, the honeymoon brochure we never used. At the bottom sat the velvet ring box. Beside it lay Olivia's returned engagement ring. I placed both rings into a small wooden memory box. Not as a promise, not as hope, just as part of the life that shaped me. The lid closed with a soft click. It stayed on the highest shelf. Some memories deserved respect. They didn't deserve control. A gentle knock sounded at the front door. Claire stood outside holding a small potted tree. A housewarming gift. I stepped aside. You didn't have to. I wanted to. She smiled as we carried it into the backyard. It'll take years to grow. I can wait. She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. I think you've become very good at that. We planted the tree together. The soil covered its roots. The evening sun settled behind the hills. Neither of us hurried to fill the quiet. When everything was finished, we stood beside the young tree. It looks small. It won't stay that way. Her words lingered. Growth rarely happened overnight. I understood that now. After she left, I walked through my home one last time before bed. Every room reflected choices I had finally made for myself. Not because someone expected them, not because I feared being alone, because they were mine. I stood by the living room window as darkness settled outside. Months earlier, I had believed my life ended at an empty altar. Now, I understood something different. The worst day of my life had forced me to meet the man I had forgotten. He wasn't perfect. He still carried scars. Some memories would always ache. But those scars no longer pointed backward. They reminded me that I survived. Olivia's greatest punishment was never a courtroom, a failed career, or losing the respect of her family. It was waking up each day knowing fear had stolen the future we could have built together. That truth belonged to her now. Mine was simpler. I chose peace over revenge, truth over denial, self-respect over chasing someone who had already walked away. The house around me stood because I finally built my future with my own hands. My story didn't end with another wedding. It ended with something stronger. I finally chose my own life.